We live in an era of basketball that is absolutely obsessed with the concept of the next big thing. In today's hyper-connected, 24/7 sports media cycle, it is no longer enough to simply be a great basketball player. You have to be a unicorn. You have to be an alien. You have to be a generational talent before you even legally have the right to purchase a lottery ticket. The hype machine, fueled by social media mixtapes, endless podcast debates, and a relentless sports news cycle, demands that we crown a new king every single year. We see teenagers anointed as saviors of multi-billion-dollar franchises before they have played a single minute of professional basketball. And with this unprecedented level of hype comes an unprecedented level of financial compensation. We are operating in a new reality, an era where name, image, and likeness deals have completely shattered the old amateur model, turning high school phenoms and college freshmen into multimillionaires long before they hear their names called on draft night by the commissioner. The financial floor has been raised so high that the expectations have completely detached from reality. Enter Anisset Francois Dybantsa Jr., known to the basketball world simply as AJ Dybantsa, the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 NBA draft by the Washington Wizards. The prodigy from Brockton, Massachusetts, who took the basketball world by storm, dominating the high school circuit, leading Brigham Young University to national prominence, and carrying the weight of an entire franchise on his 19-year-old shoulders. But as with any player who ascends a mountaintop this quickly, the whispers have already begun. The narrative is shifting. The very same media apparatus that built him up is now sharpening its knives, ready to tear him down. You have seen the headlines. You have read the tweets. You have heard the talking heads screaming across the debate desks. They are calling him the most overhyped prospect in recent memory. They are pointing to his massive rookie-scale contract and his astronomical collegiate earnings, and calling him wildly overpaid. They're looking at the desolate landscape of the Washington Wizards and wondering if this kid is simply being set up to fail, another highly touted prospect destined to put up empty calories on a losing team. But there's another side to this story, a side that looks at the sheer, unadulterated dominance of AJ Dybantsa and says the streak cannot be broken. The streak of his scoring brilliance, the streak of his relentless work ethic, the streak of improving every single doubter wrong at every conceivable level of competition. Today, we are going to dive deep, deeper than anyone else has, into the phenomenon that is AJ Dybantsa. We are going to separate the facts from the fiction, the man from the myth, and the actual on-court production from the off-court noise. Is he genuinely overhyped and overpaid? Or are we witnessing the birth of a legend whose trajectory cannot be altered by the cynics? To understand the magnitude of the pressure on this young man, we first have to understand the modern ecosystem of basketball evaluation. 10 or 15 years ago, a highly touted recruit would gain national attention, perhaps get a shoe deal upon entering the league, and sign a standard rookie contract. Today, the monetization begins the moment a player shows exceptional promise on the amateur circuit. For AJ Dybantsa, the spotlight found him early and it never let up. Ranked as the undisputed number 1 prospect in the class of 2025, he wasn't just playing for scholarships. He was an industry unto himself. When he made the unprecedented decision to commit to Brigham Young University, it wasn't just a basketball decision. It was a move that shook the foundations of college basketball's financial landscape. The financial packages associated with a player of his caliber are staggering, rivaling the salaries of established professional athletes. Before he even stepped onto the court in Provo, Utah, he was already one of the highest-earning basketball players in the world outside of the NBA. This financial reality is exactly where the overpaid label stems from. Critics argue that paying a teenager millions of dollars before they have proven themselves against grown men in the world's greatest league fundamentally alters their hunger, their drive, and their developmental arc. The argument goes that when a player achieves financial security of this magnitude so early, the intrinsic motivation to grind through the grueling 82-game NBA season inevitably wanes. They look at his rookie contract with the Washington Wizards, a deal completely predetermined by the NBA's collective bargaining agreement for the number 1 overall pick, but amplified by the massive endorsement deals and sneaker contracts waiting for him, and they balk. They say no unproven rookie should command this level of financial leverage. They call it a broken system. They call him overpaid not necessarily for what he has done, but for what the market has blindly projected him to become. And then there is the overhyped accusation. This stems from the very nature of his collegiate career and the current state of the Washington Wizards. Dybantsa is a 6'9" forward who plays with fluidity that is almost jarring for someone of his size. He led the entire nation in scoring as a true freshman at BYU, averaging an astonishing 25.5 points per game. Those numbers are staggering. They are historic. But the cynics will tell you to look closer. They will point out that while he was lighting up the scoreboard, his team ultimately fell short in the NCAA tournament, suffering a first-round exit at the hands of the Texas Longhorns despite his spectacular 35-point, 10-rebound performance. The critics argue that his game, while visually spectacular, is heavily reliant on a volume-scoring approach that might not translate seamlessly into an efficient NBA offense. They question his three-point shooting, which hovered around a respectable but not elite 33.1%. They wonder if a player who dominated the ball so heavily in college can adapt to a professional environment where the defensive schemes are infinitely more complex and the athletes are just as big, just as fast, and much stronger. Furthermore, the hype is amplified by the desperation of his new home. The Washington Wizards are a franchise that has been starved for a legitimate, transcendent superstar for decades. They drafted him number 1 overall with the explicit expectation that he will be the savior of basketball in the nation's capital. This isn't just about playing well. This is about resurrecting a dormant franchise, selling out arenas, and single-handedly changing a losing culture. When a player is burdened with the label of franchise savior, the hype automatically outpaces reality. It is an impossible standard. If he averages 20 points a game as a rookie, but the Wizards still lose 55 games, the narrative will instantly declare him a disappointment. The overhyped label is, in many ways, a trap meticulously set by a sports culture that demands instant gratification and flawless perfection from 19-year-olds. But I am here to tell you that this narrative, this growing chorus of detractors labeling A.J. Dybantsa as an overhyped and overpaid rookie, is fundamentally flawed because it ignores the undeniable, irrefutable streak of dominance that defines his entire existence on a basketball court. The streak cannot be broken because the streak is built on a foundation that predates the cameras, the contracts, and the hype. To truly evaluate A.J. Dybantsa, we must journey back to Brockton, Massachusetts. We must look at the child of Chelsea and Ace Dybantsa. Ace, an immigrant from the Republic of Congo who moved to France and then to the United States, instilled a work ethic in his son that borders on the mythical. Long before the millions, long before the number 1 ranking, there was a 4-year-old kid in Brockton who was required by his father to complete 100 push-ups every single morning and another 100 every single night. This is not a fable. This is the documented reality of his upbringing. By the time he was 10 years old, he was doing advanced plyometric box jumps. While other kids were casually playing the game, Dybantsa was being forged in a crucible of relentless discipline. He wasn't born a phenom. He was built into one, rep by rep, day by day, year by year. This foundational discipline is the armor that protects him against the toxic elements of the hype machine. The money hasn't changed his work ethic because his work ethic was never about the money. It was about honoring the sacrifices of his parents, 2 immigrants who provided a life for their family through sheer grit. He has said himself that everything he does is for his father. You do not break a streak forged in that kind of fire. His high school journey alone is a testament to this unbreakable streak. From St. Sebastian's in Massachusetts to prolific prep in California, and finally to Utah prep, Dybantsa didn't just participate, he conquered. He dominated the Nike Peach Jam, leading the circuit in scoring. He represented his country on the international stage, winning 3 FIBA gold medals. He wasn't just a member of those teams. He was the apex predator. He was the MVP of the 2025 FIBA Under-19 World Cup, averaging over 14 points per game while shooting 50% from the field against the absolute best young players on the planet. He proved time and time again that no matter the setting, no matter the level of competition, his streak of sheer superiority remained entirely unbroken. And then came the historic season at Brigham Young University. The decision to go to BYU was heavily scrutinized. Many wondered how a kid from Brockton would adapt to Provo, Utah, They wonder how he would handle the physicality of the Big 12 Conference, widely regarded as the most grueling, defensively punishing conference in all of college basketball. The answer was a season of biblical proportions. Dybantsa started all 35 games. He played nearly 35 minutes a night. He didn't just survive the Big 12. He decimated it. Let's talk about the numbers, because the numbers are the ultimate silencer of the overhyped crowd. 894 total points. That is the third most points ever scored by a Division I freshman in the history of college basketball. He shot 51% from the field. Let me repeat that for the critics who question his efficiency. A true freshman, carrying the entire offensive load for his team, taking over 17 shots a game against the best offenses in the country, shot 51% from the field. That is not hype. That is highly efficient, cold-blooded execution. We are talking about a player who consistently put up video game numbers in real life. On January 24th, 2026, he shattered the BYU freshman single-game scoring record, previously held by the legendary Danny Ainge, by dropping 43 points in a victory over Utah. In March, with the pressure mounting, he erupted for 40 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals in a crucial win over Kansas State. And even in defeat, during the NCAA tournament round of 64 against Texas, a game where the opposing defense was entirely calibrated to stop him, he played all 40 minutes and delivered a 35-point, 10-rebound masterpiece. The critics who point to the team's early tournament exit as a knock against him are ignoring the reality of the game. Basketball is a team sport, but individually, Dybantsa's streak of unguardable brilliance remained perfectly intact. He was a consensus first-team All-American, the Big 12 Freshman of the Year, and the Julius Erving Small Forward of the Year. You do not accumulate that level of hardware. You do not lead the nation in scoring as a teenager, strictly off of hype. You do it through undeniable talent and an unbreakable will to dominate. Now, let's address the massive financial figures that have led to the overpaid allegations. Yes, A.J. Dybantsa has generated an astonishing amount of wealth before his 20th birthday. But the word overpaid implies that the compensation exceeds the value provided. We must ask ourselves, what is the value of a 6'9" wing with a 6'11" wingspan, a 40.5-inch vertical leap, and the ball handling skills of a point guard? What is the value of a player who can seamlessly transition from a devastating crossover to a thunderous poster dunk, and then calmly orchestrate a pick and roll on the very next possession? In the modern NBA, the big, playmaking wing is the ultimate premium asset. It is the archetype that wins championships. Dybantsa possesses a physical profile that cannot be taught and a skill set that has been meticulously crafted. When the Washington Wizards committed tens of millions of dollars to him as the number 1 overall pick, they were not paying for his high school mixtapes or his Instagram followers. They were paying for the fact that he possesses the most coveted combination of traits in the sport of basketball. His ability to create his own shot against any defender, his elite fluidity in both the upper and lower body, his exceptional body control in the air, and his surprisingly advanced court vision make him a singular prospect. He is not a raw athlete who needs to learn how to play basketball. He is an elite basketball player who happens to have world-class athleticism. Scouts note that despite being the quickest player on the floor, he is never reliant solely on his speed. He operates with an advanced understanding of pacing, utilizing jab steps, hesitation dribbles, and a lethal mid-range pull-up to keep defenders perpetually off balance. When you have a player who can read a defense like a 10-year veteran and finish at the rim with the ferocity of a generational athlete, you pay whatever the market dictates. In the context of the billions of dollars generated by the NBA, A.J. Dybantsa is not overpaid. He is a premium asset secured at the exact market rate for a potential franchise cornerstone. The challenge that lies ahead in Washington is undeniable. The Wizards are a team in the throes of a massive rebuild. The roster lacks established star power, and the culture of losing has been deeply entrenched in the organization for years. The critics argue that putting a 19-year-old into this environment is a recipe for disaster. They fear that the losing will break his spirit, that the inefficient habits required to carry a bad team will stun his long-term growth, and that the streak of Wizards draft disappointments will swallow him whole. But this perspective severely underestimates the psychological fortitude of A.J. Dybantsa. Remember the 100 push-ups. Remember the early morning workouts. Remember the commitment to honoring his family's sacrifices. Dybantsa is not a delicate prodigy who needs a perfect environment to thrive. He is an apex competitor who has consistently elevated the level of play everywhere he has been. The Wizards did not draft him to conform to their culture. They drafted him to obliterate it and build a new one in his image. His streak cannot be broken by a struggling franchise because his standard of excellence is internal. When you watch him play, you don't see a player going through the motions. You see a competitor who takes every defensive assignment personally, a player who averaged over a steal a game and nearly 7 rebounds a game because he is willing to do the dirty work required to win. He is not just a scorer. He is a complete basketball player who understands that true greatness requires impact on both ends of the floor. As we look toward the future, the narrative surrounding A.J. Dybantsa will continue to be a battleground of opinions. The hot take artists will magnify every missed rotation, every poor shooting night, and every rookie mistake, aggressively pushing the agenda that he is an overhyped and overpaid bust. The financial figures attached to his name will be weaponized against him during every Wizards losing streak. The pressure will be immense, suffocating, and unrelenting. But for those who truly study the game, the reality is clear. We are witnessing the arrival of a player who has systematically conquered every level of basketball he has ever touched. We are looking at a young man whose foundation is built on an unbreakable work ethic, instilled by a father who demanded excellence from day one. The physical tools are generational. The collegiate production was historic. The mental makeup is ironclad. Is A.J. Dybantsa overhyped? Only if you believe that a 6'9", dynamic scoring wing who dominated college basketball as a freshman doesn't deserve the spotlight. Is he overpaid? Only if you fundamentally misunderstand the economics of the modern NBA and the immense value of a potential superstar wing. The truth is, A.J. Dybantsa is exactly where he belongs. He is the right player at the right time with the right mentality to shoulder the immense burden placed upon him. The Washington Wizards are betting their entire future on the premise that his streak of excellence will translate to professional level. They are betting that the kid from Brockton, who used to shoot on a Spider-Man hoop in his bedroom, can weave a web of success in the nation's capital. Olympics.com. And based on everything we have seen, from the grueling childhood workouts to the historic nights in Provo, Utah, betting against A.J. Dybantsa is a fool's errand. The noise will continue. The critics will loudly voice their doubts, and the pressure will only magnify as the lights get brighter. But when the ball is tipped, when the talking stops and the game begins, A.J. Dybantsa will do what he has always done. He will attack the rim, he will break down defenders, he will lead his team, and he will prove that the hype was never fabrication, but merely a prologue. The streak of his dominance, his relentless pursuit of greatness, and his inevitable rise to NBA superstardom is not an illusion created by the media. It is a reality forged by a lifetime of dedication. The critics can call him whatever they want. They can scream into the void about his contract and his fame. But out there on the hardwood, where the only currency that matters is the ability to put the ball in the hoop and stop the man in front of you, A.J. Dybantsa's undeniable talent speaks louder than any debate show. The streak cannot be broken, and the era of A.J. Dybantsa has only just begun. Thank you for diving deep with us today. If you want to see how this incredible story unfolds, you know exactly where to keep your eyes fixed. The future of basketball is here, and his name is A.J. Dybantsa.